Give us one more day, it will make a big difference to the sample quality and it won't affect the timeline too much. If you're able to attend to unhappy customers well, you'll be able to continue your relationships with them. If you want to get the best results from your subordinates, you need to be assertive. Assertiveness is not about bulldozing your way through while disregarding people's feelings. How then can you express your views honestly and yet be respectful? Explain to your team members why you need them to do certain things and how they would help the organization. Be open to other people's suggestions. And always accept responsibility for your decisions. Otherwise, how will your subordinates believe in what you say? It's important for you to build rapport with your supervisor. One way is to know how he prefers to process information. For example, if your supervisor is a visual person, you can use graphs, pictures and videos to help him visualize your message. For an auditory supervisor, let him hear your message through face-to-face meetings and phone calls. And if your supervisor is a feeling person, get your message across through experiences such as site visits and product testing. If you're able to influence your co-workers, you can help your project team reach desired outcomes and manage changes. You may use one or a combination of these 4 push and pull influencing styles. One push style is to use logic, point out the loopholes of an argument, and then offer a counter proposal. Another push style is carrot and stick. Show your co-workers the reward they'll get if they comply and highlight the potential threats if they don't. On the other side of the coin are the pull styles. The consultative style is suitable if your team members are committed and capable of offering ideas. And if you're working with senior and independent people, you can move them using the big picture, such as values, mission, and life goals. Employers value employees who are able to grow personally and professionally. These employees are able to take on greater responsibilities and challenges. Therefore, it's important to manage your self-development well. You begin by identifying your career goals. Then, embark on continuing education and training to help you build on your strengths, minimize your weaknesses, and reach your goals. To get the skills you need to stay employable, get the job you want, and progress in your career, you should consider the Singapore Workforce Skills Qualification System, or WSQ. WSQ courses are practical. WSQ frameworks are co-developed by WDA and its industry partners from over 30 sectors. This means you gain skill sets that employers truly want. The courses are accessible. They're easily available at more than 450 CET centers and training providers island-wide. They are affordable. Singaporeans can get subsidies of up to 95% of course fees. They're also flexible. You can take up bite-sized modules to suit your needs and schedule. It's often said that character traits and interpersonal and communication skills will determine how far you'll advance in your career. If you aspire to grow into a holistic leader, find out more about leadership and people management WSQ training programs at www.wda.gov.sg/LPM_WSQ. If you want to upgrade your industry-specific skills, be sure to check out other WSQ frameworks. Log on to www.wda.gov.sg or download the Learn SG mobile app now.
There's a man by the name of Captain William Swenson, who recently was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions on September 8, 2009. On that day, a column of American and Afghan troops were making their way through a part of Afghanistan to help protect a group of government officials, a group of Afghan government officials who'd be meeting with some local village elders. The column came under ambush and was surrounded on 3 sides. And amongst many other things, Captain Swenson was recognized for running into live fire to rescue the wounded and pull out the dead. One of the people he rescued was a sergeant, and he and a comrade were making their way to a medevac helicopter. And what was remarkable about this day is, by sheer coincidence, one of the medevac medics happened to have a GoPro camera on his helmet and captured the whole scene on camera. It shows Captain Swenson and his comrade bringing this wounded soldier who'd received a gunshot to the neck. They put him in the helicopter, and then you see Captain Swenson bend over and give him a kiss before he turns around to rescue more. I saw this, and I thought to myself, where do people like that come from? What is that? That is some deep, deep emotion when you would want to do that. There's a love there. And I want to know, why is it that I don't have people that I work with like that? You know, in the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. Yeah, right? So I asked myself, where do people like this come from? And my initial conclusion was that they're just better people. That's why they're attracted to the military. These better people are attracted to this concept of service. But that's completely wrong. What I learned is that it's the environment. And if you get the environment right, every single one of us has the capacity to do these remarkable things. And more importantly, others have that capacity too. I've had the great honor of getting to meet some of these who we would call heroes, who've put themselves and put their lives at risk to save others. And I asked them, why would you do it? Why did you do it? And they all say the same thing, because they would have done it for me. It's this deep sense of trust and cooperation. So trust and cooperation are really important here. The problem with concepts of trust and cooperation is that they are feelings, they're not instructions. I can't simply say to you, trust me, and you will. I can't simply instruct two people to cooperate, and they will. It's not how it works. It's a feeling. So where does that feeling come from? If you go back 50,000 years to the Paleolithic era, the early days of Homo sapiens, what we find is that the world was filled with danger. All of these forces working very, very hard to kill us. Nothing personal. Whether it was the weather, lack of resources, maybe a saber-toothed tiger, all of these things working to reduce our lifespan. And so we evolved into social animals, where we lived together and worked together in what I call a circle of safety, inside the tribe, where we felt like we belong. And when we felt safe amongst our own, the natural reaction was trust and cooperation. There are inherent benefits to this. It means I can fall asleep at night and trust that someone from within my tribe will watch for danger. If we don't trust each other, if I don't trust you, that means you won't watch for danger. Bad system of survival. The modern day is exactly the same thing. The world is filled with danger, things that are trying to frustrate our lives or reduce our success, reduce our opportunity for success. It could be the ups and downs of the economy, the uncertainty of the stock market. It could be a new technology that renders your business model obsolete overnight. Or it could be your competition that is sometimes trying to kill you. It's sometimes trying to put you out of business, but at the very minimum is working hard to frustrate your growth and steal your business from you. We have no control over these forces. These are a constant, and they're not going away. The only variable are the conditions inside the organization. And that's where leadership matters, because it's the leader that sets the tone. When a leader makes the choice to put the safety and lives of the people inside the organization first, to sacrifice their comforts and sacrifice the tangible results so that the people remain and feel safe and feel like they belong, remarkable things happen. I was flying on a trip, and I was witness to an incident where a passenger attempted to board before their number was called. And I watched the gate agent treat this man like he had broken the law, like a criminal. He was yelled at for attempting to board one group too soon. So I said something. I said, why do you have to treat us like cattle? Why can't you treat us like human beings? And this is exactly what she said to me. She said, sir, if I don't follow the rules, I could get in trouble or lose my job. All she was telling me is that she doesn't feel safe. All she was telling me is that she doesn't trust her leaders. The reason we like flying Southwest Airlines is not because they necessarily hire better people, it's because they don't fear their leaders. You see, if the conditions are wrong, we're forced to expend our own time and energy to protect ourselves from each other. And that inherently weakens the organization. When we feel safe inside the organization, we will naturally combine our talents and our strengths and work tirelessly to face the dangers outside and seize the opportunities. The closest analogy I can give to what a great leader is like being a parent. If you think about what being a great parent is, what do you want? What makes a great parent? We want to give our child opportunities, education, discipline them when necessary, all so that they can grow up and achieve more than we could for ourselves. Great leaders want exactly the same thing. They want to provide their people opportunity, education, discipline when necessary, build their self-confidence, give them the opportunity to try and fail, all so that they could achieve more than we could ever imagine for ourselves. Charlie Kim, who's the CEO of a company called NextJump in New York City, a tech company, he makes the point that if you had hard times in your family, would you ever consider laying off one of your children? We would never do it. Then why do we consider laying off people inside our organization? Charlie implemented a policy of lifetime employment. If you get a job at NextJump, you cannot get fired for performance issues. In fact, if you have issues, they will coach you and they will give you support, just like we would with one of our children who happens to come home with a C from school. It's the complete opposite. This is the reason so many people have such a visceral hatred, sort of anger at some of these banking CEOs with their disproportionate salaries and bonus structures. It's not the numbers. It's that they have violated the very definition of leadership. They have violated this deep-seated social contract. We know that they allowed their people to be sacrificed so they could protect their own interests. Or worse, they sacrificed their people to protect their own interests. This is what so offends us, not the numbers. Would anybody be offended if we gave a $150 million bonus to Gandhi? How about a $250 million bonus to Mother Teresa? Do we have an issue with that? None at all. None at all. Great leaders would never sacrifice the people to save the numbers. They would sooner sacrifice the numbers to save the people. Bob Chapman, who runs a large manufacturing company in the Midwest called Barry Waymiller, in 2008, he was hit very hard by the recession, and they lost 30% of their orders overnight. Now, in a large manufacturing company, this is a big deal, and they could no longer afford their labor pool. They needed to save $10 million. So, like so many companies today, the board got together and discussed layoffs. And Bob refused. You see, Bob doesn't believe in head counts. Bob believes in heart counts. And it's much more difficult to simply reduce the heart count. And so they came up with a furlough program. Every employee from secretary to CEO was required to take 4 weeks of unpaid vacation. They could take it any time they wanted, and they did not have to take it consecutively. But it was how Bob announced the program that mattered so much. He said, it's better that we should all suffer a little than any of us should have to suffer a lot. And morale went up. They saved $20 million. And most importantly, as would be expected, when the people feel safe and protected by the leadership in the organization, the natural reaction is to trust and cooperate. And quite spontaneously, nobody expected, people started trading with each other. Those who could afford it more would trade with those who could afford it less. People would take 5 weeks so that somebody else only had to take 3. Leadership is a choice. It is not a rank. I know many people at the senior-most levels of organizations who are absolutely not leaders. They are authorities, and we do what they say because they have authority over us, but we would not follow them. And I know many people who are at the bottoms of organizations who have no authority, and they are absolutely leaders. And this is because they have chosen to look after the person to the left of them, and they have chosen to look after the person to the right of them. This is what a leader is. I heard a story of some Marines who were out in theater, and as is the Marine custom, the officer ate last, and he let his men eat first. And when they were done, there was no food left for him. And when they went back out in the field, his men brought him some of their food so that he may eat. Because that's what happens. We call them leaders because they go first. We call them leaders because they take the risk before anybody else does. We call them leaders because they will choose to sacrifice so that their people may be safe and protected, and so their people may gain. And when we do, the natural response is that our people will sacrifice for us. They will give us their blood and sweat and tears to see that their leader's vision comes to life. And when we ask them, why would you do that? Why would you give your blood and sweat and tears for that person? They all say the same thing. Because they would have done it for me. And isn't that the organization we would all like to work in? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Over the next couple of days, you'll probably hear a lot about how to make better design, how to execute better, how to consider your clients or the end user when you're doing what you have to do. And I'd like to add another item to the list to consider as you sit here for the next 2 days, which is how can you help the human race? How can you help the human race, the human species, progress? I'm not joking either. This is something I think we all have to be aware of. At the end of the day, the human animal is a social animal. And our very survival depends on our ability to form communities, to form cultures. What's a community? What's a culture? It's a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs, right? What's a country? It's a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs. What's a company? It should be a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs. When we're surrounded by people who believe what we believe, something remarkable happens. Trust emerges. And make no mistake of it, trust is a feeling, a distinctly human feeling. You know, we all have friends who are total screw-ups, and yet we still trust them, right? Trust is not a checklist. Simply doing everything you say you're going to do does not mean people will inherently trust you. It just means you're reliable. We need trust, right? We need trust. When we're surrounded by people who believe what we believe and trust starts to emerge and we trust them and they trust us, we're more willing to take risks. We're more willing to experiment, which requires failure. We're more willing to explore and go somewhere that no one has ever gone before with the confidence that if we fail, if we trip over, if we turn our backs, that those within our community, those who we trust and who trust us, will look after us while we're gone, will pick us up when we fall over, will help us when we're hurt. Our very survival depends on it. We're not good at everything. We're not good by ourselves. You know, if I send you out to go fight a saber-toothed tiger by yourself, odds are tiger 1, you 0. It's not going to go very well. But if you go out as a group, we're pretty damn amazing. And the reason is because we all have our certain strengths and we all have our certain weaknesses. And the goal is not to fix your weaknesses. The goal is to amplify your strengths and surround yourself with the people who can do what you can't do. But it's not just based on skills and application and experience. It's based on what you believe. It's based on what you believe. You see, simply being good at something and having somebody else being good at what you're no good at does not mean you will trust each other. Trust, the sense of trust comes from the sense of common values and common beliefs. I can prove it. How many of you are from New York? Okay, a bunch of you. Are you friends with everybody in New York? Why not? Why not? But when you go to Los Angeles and you meet someone from New York, you're like, hey, I'm from New York, and you're best friends, right? And when you go to France, there you are on the Paris metro minding your own business, and you hear an American accent behind you, and you turn around, and you say, hey, where are you from? They say, Los Angeles. You're like, hey, I'm from New York, and you're best friends. Because when you're surrounded by people who don't believe what you believe, when you're in a strange environment where you don't feel comfortable, you look for anyone who may share some of the same values and beliefs that you have, and you start to form a very real and very intense bond with them, simply because you know that they have a basic understanding of how you grew up, of the things that you care about, of the life that you live back home. Well, the same is true when we go to work. Do we want to go to work with people who understand us, who believe what we believe, who have a similar view of the world that has nothing to do with their opinions and the differences that we share? That's good. That's called diversity. That's called advantages to problem solving, which is we can all look at the same thing from a different angle and come up with solutions. What I'm talking about is why should you help each other in the first place? What are you in pursuit of? Now the question is what creates that sense of values and beliefs? What creates that sense of trust? Our very human instinct. We know how to find people who believe what we believe. Our survival depends on it. We're biologically gifted with this idea. If I ask you to go out in the street and find all the people who believe what you believe, you know exactly what to do. You're going to strike up conversations. You're going to start talking to people. And either you'll have a good feeling about them or you won't. Either you'll have chemistry, whatever that means, or you don't. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's slow. But we know how to do it. It's called making friends, it's called dating, it's called networking. We have the innate ability to do it. The problem is it's not scalable. The problem is you're the only one who had that gut feeling. But if you know the symbols to look for, if you know how to see the things that people are doing and saying, that you can find them. If I tell you to go out on the street and find all the people wearing red hats, it's easy. There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, they're easy to spot. Simply because they have a symbol, they have something that they're giving off that says something about who they are and what they believe. When you were standing on that Paris metro, that American accent that you heard was a symbol, it was a sign. You don't know these people, and yet you trust them. They will say to you, you guys have to go to this restaurant. And you'll go, okay, and you'll go to that restaurant because they told you to. Now, what if you were walking down the street and some stranger just says, hey, you gotta go to this restaurant? You'd be like, crackpot, right? You're gonna ignore them. This is what trust does. This is why we don't research everything. We don't need access to all information. Let's say you want to go buy a new television, right? So you do all your research, consumer reports, look it all up, right? I know what I'm going to buy, I know what I'm going to do. I'm getting the LG, it's the best on the market, can't wait to get it, right? So that's what you've decided to do this weekend. That Friday night, you go over to a friend's house, your friend, the gadget guy, the guy who has the first of everything, right? And you go to his house and you can't wait to show off and share with him what you're going to do with all your research. And you say, I'm getting the new LG. And he says, nah, man, get the Sony, it's so much better. In that one instant, either he's completely turned all of your research on its head, and you're going to have to go back and do all the research again. Is he right? Should I trust him? Should I believe him? Or you just bought a Sony. All that marketing, all that research, out the tube, down the drain. It doesn't matter. Because the person that you trust, the person from within your community, told you that you should get the Sony. And you trust him. He knows more than you. He must be right. I trust him. I don't have to know everything. Again, you're walking down the street, you accidentally bump shoulders with somebody, and they say, where are you going? You say, oh, I'm going to Best Buy to get the new LG. They go, don't get the new LG. I know everything about this stuff. Get the Sony. Crackpot, right? You're going to ignore the person. We don't trust everyone. We trust people from within our community. But you have to know what to look for.
There are limits.
Just as I said before, when you find the people with the red hats, every single piece of communication we make, every decision we make in our lives is a piece of communication. Every decision we make in our lives as individuals or as organizations is a piece of communication. It's our way of saying something about who we are and what we believe. This is why authenticity matters. This is why you have to say and do the things you actually believe, because the things you say and do are symbols of who you are. And we look for those symbols so we can find people who believe what we believe. Our very survival depends. So if you're putting out false symbols, you will attract people to those symbols, but you won't be able to form trust with them. This is what Tiger Woods did. He lied. He lied. He told us what he thought we wanted to hear. And it was great, and we were drawn to it. And all of us who kind of like that idea of the sort of the good guy, were drawn to it. Until we found out it was a lie. He could have been the bad boy of golf. He could have had all the same endorsements and had a fantastic career and still been hailed as one of the great athletes of our day. But he didn't. He chose to lie. Good luck forming trust again, Tiger. We don't believe you. We don't trust you. The goal of putting something out there, if you say what you believe and you do what you believe, you will attract people who believe what you believe. If you go to one of your friends and you say to one of your friends, how would you like me to dress so that you'll like me better? How would you want me to address you? How do you want me to speak so that you'll like me more? Right? Your friends are going to look at you and be like,
Impossible comebacks are sort of my specialty.
yeah, come on. What should I wear so that you'll find me more appealing? And how would you like me to speak to you so that you'll like me more? And your friends are going to tell you, just be yourself. That's why I like you. I don't, just be yourself. Now think about what we do in industry. What do? We do market research, and we go out and we ask the customers, what kind of things, what style should we speak to you? How should we decorate ourselves? What kind of things are you drawn to so that we can do those things so you'll like us more? It's just as ridiculous. It's just as ridiculous. Organizations should say and do the things they actually believe, and they will attract people who believe what they believe. Or they can choose to lie, and at the slightest hint that they might be lying, cynicism sets in. And people start saying, I'm not sure I can trust these guys, because there's not a lot of consistency in all the things they say and do, which means they can't have a very strong belief set, or they're lying. We call them inauthentic. The entire process of asking other people who we should be is inauthentic. That's hilarious to me. All these positioning studies we do are inherent. We're going to do a study to find out from people so we can be more authentic. That's hilarious. Say and do what you actually believe, and the symbols you put out there, the things you say and the things you do, those red hats are ways that people can find you. What you have the ability to do as designers is create those symbols and allow people to use those things to say something about who they are. Work for companies, work for clients, work for people who you believe what they believe. Show up and feel a part of something bigger than yourself. And your part is to put what they believe into pictures and words and symbols and graphics so that other people can use those things to say something about who they are. People put Harley-Davidson logos on their body to say something about who they are. Corporate logo. Ain't no Procter & Gamble's tattooed on anybody's arm. Because Harley means something. They stand for something. People put that tattoo on there not to tell you that they own a motorcycle. They put that tattoo there to tell you something about themselves. You ever see anybody with a Mac laptop put a sticker over that beautiful shining apple? Ain't never gonna happen. Then how will you know who I am? Do you ever see anybody with a PC break out the Windex to clean out their computer? Mac people? Have you ever seen a dirty Mac? Doesn't exist. Does not exist. Why? Because it's who I am. These are symbols we use. The companies that are crystal clear in what they believe, and they're disciplined in how they do it, and they're consistent in what they do, and everything they say and everything they do serves as a symbol of the set of values and beliefs. We use those symbols to say something about who we are. We surround ourselves with the people and the products and the brands that say something about who we are. And when we can find the people who believe what we believe, we're weirdly drawn to them because our very survival depends on it. We need it. And so the more you can give of yourself, the more you can give of what you believe, the more you can with discipline, say and do the things you actually believe, strange things start to happen. Just like on that metro in Paris, simply because of one tiny little symbol that was put out there. And up in the same place, we may have the same values, we may have the same beliefs. We're drawn to each other and we live beautifully, trust each other, and more importantly, we look out for each other.
Impossible comebacks are sort of my specialty.
We go to work every day and we sit at our computers and we sit at our desks and we solve problems by sending emails. Get up and go talk to somebody. It's called human interaction, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'll tell you a quick story. I was on a plane it was about a week ago, actually. It was only about a week ago. And I was coming down the aisle, and my seatmate, I guess, my companion for the next 5 hours, was already sitting down. She was in the aisle, and I had the window seat. And you know, we've all had this experience where you're the one who gets there first, and you look down and you hope that it's that one. Please, 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 no. Praying that that becomes your seatmate. I've had many fantasies about wives and girlfriends that never sat down next to me. It's better than an icebreaker, right? Hi, right? Sitting next to you. And equally, we've seen people coming down the aisle saying, please don't sit next to me, please don't sit next to me, please. We've all done that. Well, she ignored me entirely. So I could only assume that she was praying that I wouldn't sit next to her. I somehow think, though, she was hoping that no one would sit next to her. So, you know what it's like. We've all been on planes. You travel and you go to the aisle and custom dictates, just general politeness, that the person looks up to you and says, she just completely ignored me. Her face in her book. I put my bag in the overhead compartment. She still ignored me, to the point where I actually had to say, excuse me, sitting there. And she sort of begrudgingly moved aside. She didn't stand up. She begrudgingly moved her leg to the side and went, right? Like this was something she didn't expect would happen.
This is my calling.
Right? So I sat down. I knew exactly what this flight was going to be like. I would have my headphones on for 5 hours, and I would ignore the person sitting next to me and be afraid every time I had to go to the bathroom. And when I'm on a plane, the pressure, I have to go more often. It's very embarrassing. And so I sit down as soon as I've gone, I have to go immediately again. I'm going to have a bladder infection because, anyway, different story. And so we got into flight. We sort of reached altitude, and the flight attendant came around to ask us if we wanted breakfast. And she came over to us and she said, "Would you like cereal? Would you like the omelet?" I said, and I said, "Oh, this is." She turned to my seatmate and definitely seatmate. That's funny. Semi-sweet. Bitter. She turns to my seatmate and she says, "Do you want the omelet or do you want the cereal?" And she says, "I'll also have the cereal. 2 cereals." 4 minutes later, the flight attendant comes back and says, "I only have 1 cereal." So now I've already decided in my mind that I was going to say to my seatmate, "You have the cereal," right? I had already decided. But before the words could even come out of my mouth, she turns to the flight attendant and says, "I'll have the cereal." And at that point, I hated her. And here's the joke. She lacks a spirit of generosity. No matter what option she would have chosen, she would have gotten the cereal. For one, if she'd waited for 3 seconds and heard that I was about to offer it to her, she would have got the cereal, right? If she absolutely had to have the cereal, she could have turned to me and said, "Do you mind if I have the cereal?" And I would have said, "Go right ahead," right? She could have even apologized and said, "Thank you to me. I'm really sorry, allergic to eggs, can I have this cereal?" In other words, no matter what option she chose, she would have got the cereal. But the one option she went with was to take a selfish perspective, to go for what she wanted and ignore the wants, desires, and needs of anyone around her, even including just being polite. In other words, she didn't have to give me the cereal, she could have just been polite about it, right? Now, from that point on, I really hated her. And I wrote an article about this little experience while I was on the plane sitting next to her, and made no attempt to turn the screen so she couldn't read it, secretly hoping she was. Salt and pepper hair, glasses. I'm good, thank you. And more importantly now, I had no desire to do anything for her anymore, right? Now, when we got done, when the flight landed, perhaps as a nice person, if she had just established some sort of rapport with me, just because I'm a nice guy, I would have taken her case down. Here you go, But I didn't, and I wasn't going to. Or if I did, it wouldn't have been with a spirit of generosity. If I did, it would have been as a sort of a smug remark, like, there you go, I'm still nice. It would have been as a, one of those deals. Or I would have done it simply as some sort of positive reinforcement to myself that despite this horrible person, I'm still a nice guy, right? No matter which one would have motivated me to take that case down, it wouldn't have been with a spirit of generosity. It would have been some sort of selfish act or some sort of aggressive act, right? It's the spirit of generosity. If we're willing to give to the person next to us, it's amazing what they'll be willing to give to us, right? And again, our very survival depends on this. We need to trust each other, and we're more willing to trust somebody who's willing to help us. I hate the whole self-help industry, right? How can you be happy? What are the 5 steps you can follow to be a millionaire? What are the 7 steps that you need to get the career that you want? Me, me. What about helping the guy next to you? What are the 5 steps that you can do to help the person next to you lose some weight? What are the 7 steps that you can follow to help the person next to you find the job that they want? Do you know how we get fulfillment? You can be happy because you did things at work. You can be proud because you did things at work. You can be excited because you had a big success at work. But you know how you feel fulfilled at work? When you do something for someone else. It's the only way we get that feeling. It's the only way we get that feeling. Do you know why the statistics say that over 90% of people don't feel fulfilled by the work they do? It's not because of the job, it's not because of the pay, it's not because of the benefits. It's because we don't help each other anymore. We sit in our cubes and we work. And anything that we turn to anybody is because we need something, we need to get something. And yet we don't put ourselves out there simply for no other reason than to help somebody else. Do you know what generosity is? Generosity is doing something for someone else expecting nothing in return. At no point ever. I did something for him, why won't he help me? It's not an equation. It's designed to have you feel good. And Mother Nature has given us this feeling when we do something for someone else to encourage us to do it. Because when we are in groups, when we are surrounded by people who believe what we believe, trust emerges and our very survival and progress goes up. Sex feels good. That's why we do it. And Mother Nature has provided that it will feel good so that we can do it more, so that we can procreate. That was not an accident, right? Well, the same goes here, that sense of